Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha TV. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Frank Razan Pereira. The Supreme Court on Wednesday called the directors of the Intelligence Bureau, the Central Bureau of Investigation and the Delhi Police Commissioner to look into the material furnished by lawyer Utsav Bains in support of his allegations in the framing of Chief Justice Ranjan Gogoi in a false sexual harassment case. A bench comprising Justice Arun Mishra, Justice Rohinton, Fali, Nariman and Justice Deepak Gupta met all the three officers in their chambers. The apex court asked Bains to file an additional affidavit to substantiate his allegation that three disgruntled employees of the Supreme Court conspired along with corporate lobbyists to frame sexual harassment allegations against the CJI. After the hearing, Justice Mishra dictated the order asking for another affidavit by Bains regarding his allegations against the sacked employees. The court also said that it will decide the issue if privilege can be claimed over the communications between Bains and the alleged conspirators. The bench also clarified that this will not affect the pending inquiry by the in-house panel. On this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze if there is a conspiracy against the judiciary. Joining me on the program today are P.K. Malhotra, former Secretary, Ministry of Law and Justice, Government of India; Satya Prakash, legal editor of the Tribune; and Desh Ratan Nigam, advocate of the Supreme Court. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Mr. Malhotra, I'd like to start the program with you. First and foremost, your thoughts on everything that has transpired today and the entire controversy.
Mr. Frank, I think among all the three organs of the government, that is the executive, legislature and the judiciary, even today with whatever has happened, I think the judiciary is commanding more respect even as compared to the other two organs. And it is the faith of the common man in judiciary which is making faith of the democracy as such among the people more important for all of us. If such type of allegations have been made against the senior officers and there is an evidence on record to the effect, I think there is a mechanism, and without proper investigation, I think it should not be highlighted in the press, because without there being a material which is proved on the basis of record, it definitely puts a dent on the image of the judiciary, and the confidence of the people is definitely shaken because of that. I think keeping that in view, if something is definitely on record, it is not necessarily that before investigation is carried out, to maintain the image of the judiciary, it must be kept under guard and it should come in public domain only if there is a definite evidence available on record, and that evidence will come only when a proper inquiry is conducted. I think that inquiry has been initiated. If somebody is making an allegation, I understand today also the court has asked for certain further information which will be provided by the petitioner who has made this complaint. Whether it should go in that process, I think it's a bigger question, which probably, because the matter is sub judice before the court, I think we should not travel beyond a particular point except saying that institutional integrity needs to be maintained, and for maintaining institutional integrity, if certain new procedures need to be established without compromising with the basic principles of natural justice, I think we have to evolve those principles so that institutions enjoy the reputation which they are supposed to enjoy.
Absolutely. Satya Prakash, is there a conspiracy against the CJI? At least, how do you see it?
It's very difficult to say whether there is a conspiracy or not. But Justice Ranjan Gogoi is the third CJI against whom certain allegations have been levelled. Before that, Justice J.S. Kher, and then Justice Deepak Mishra, and then there was an attempt to remove him also. So this is the third attempt against a CJI. There are whatever allegations. There are two parts of it. One is certain allegations levelled by a dismissed Supreme Court employee against Justice Ranjan Gogoi. That is being dealt with by a committee headed by Justice S.A. Bobde. And second is the larger conspiracy which has been alleged by Advocate Utsav Bains in his affidavit filed before the Supreme Court. Today's hearing was about this affidavit, and Bains appeared and he told the court that he has some additional material which he will be filing tomorrow in the form of an affidavit. What the court has said today, the court has made it clear, today's proceedings I am talking about, the court has made it clear these proceedings have nothing to do with the ongoing inquiry which is being headed by Justice Bobde. That's a separate thing, and that is at the administrative level. This is the judicial part, and these proceedings are only limited to ensuring that there is, ensuring that there is no attempt to destabilize the judiciary. The court is going to get into the entire episode and try to find out whether there was actually an attempt or conspiracy to force the Chief Justice of India to resign, whether there was an attempt to bribe Bains, and he has claimed that he was offered 1.5 crore rupees, whether there was such attempt, and whether there was some conspiracy between some lawyers, some disgruntled, dismissed employees and some corporates to frame the CJI in a sexual harassment case. The court said we will get to the bottom of the case and we will take it to the logical conclusion. The court is very clear. So tomorrow morning, again the case will be taken up. One thing that Attorney General Mr. K.K. Venugopal and Solicitor General Mr. Tushar Mehta, they tried to suggest to the court that there should be an SIT probe. The court said nothing at this stage. Let us talk to the officials who were summoned, the IB chief, CBI director and the Delhi police chief, and thereafter the court did not say anything about investigation. The court has indicated that they will get to the bottom of the case, because they talked about the institution and why this institution is important. But tomorrow is very crucial. Depending upon what is produced before the court will take the next course of action. Another thing the court has told Utsav Bains is that he has claimed that certain documents or certain information, he said it's privileged communication and he does not want to disclose it to the court. And the court has said we will also examine whether you can disclose certain things and withhold some certain other things from the court in such an important matter.
Right.
And the court has asked the Supreme Court Bar Association President and the Attorney General to assist the court on this particular legal point.
Sure.
So tomorrow the court will proceed to examine two things: the fresh documents adduced by Utsav Bains and the legal point whether he can withhold certain information in the name of privileged communication from the court. These are the 2 points the court will consider and then decide the future course of
Absolutely. Desh Ratan Nigam, I'd like to bring you into the picture now, and as an advocate in the Supreme Court, I mean, this is a question that I have to ask you, because some serious allegations have been made, against the CJI. Some counterclaims have been made by Utsav Bains. He's talking about a larger conspiracy. He's talking about corporates being involved. How messy is the affair really?
See, I don't think there's anything messy about Supreme Court. Supreme Court is going about its business as usual. We have been in the Supreme Court and it's doing its business as usual. CJI court is also functioning normally. Justice Bobde's court is also functioning normally. In fact, in a day or two I have to appear before them. And one thing what I like about it, before anything could come up, Justice Gogoi himself offered to be investigated and did not pass that order. He did not sign that. Only 2 judges out of the 3 signed that order. He said, I don't want to be a part of it. And then it went to the next senior most judge, Justice Bobde, who is going to become the Chief Justice of India. And therefore, the due process started then and there. And therefore, that impartial inquiry, one which is the in-house panel and one about the larger conspiracy where Justice Bobde summoned CBI, IB and the Delhi police to find out if there is a larger conspiracy. But one has to be very, very careful here that the whole issue should not be politicized. Mr. Bains should be very, very careful, when he talked about there is a political party, A, B, C, then, even he's correct, there will be an element of doubt coming into the people that he's taking sides, politically taking sides. That is where the Supreme Court has to be very, very careful not to allow this politicization of this particular issue that has come before. And at the same time, there, as rightly pointed out, 2 judges previously were also, some kind of pressure was brought in last 5 years. And this present CJI is discussing some very, very, dealing with some very, very sensitive issues I don't want to name those cases, and they have been in the limelight connected to political parties. And if at all what Mr. Bains says is there is an iota of truth, it needs to be investigated. Even if I'm not saying there is an iota of truth, if there isn't some investigative material available on record, you have to reach to the bottom of the entire issue. But very carefully, you don't have to allow it to be tried by the media. No media trial.
Absolutely.
Because it involves the respect and dignity of the judiciary, which is very sensitive, because that's the last door you knock. And therefore, one has to be very, very careful. And media also has to be very sensitive and responsible about it.
Absolutely. I'll come to the media in just a bit, Satya. I'd like to speak to you about the media. But before that, Mr. Malhotra, is there a procedure, while dealing with complaints of criminal misconduct concerning the higher judiciary or the CJI or a top judge?
Yes, there is an in-house mechanism already in existence, which is approval of the Supreme Court itself, that whenever a complaint is received against a judge, it is to be investigated by a committee and a report is to be submitted to the Chief Justice of India. And only thereafter,
But in this case,
yeah, I'm coming to that. After the Chief Justice of India takes a call in consultation with the other judges also, what further action need to be taken. As on today, so far as investigation of cases against the judges is concerned and the final action is concerned, the Constitution provides only for impeachment. No other punishment is prescribed. And so far as even impeachment is concerned, I think in none of the cases so far we have succeeded in impeaching a judge, because many cases have gone, inquiry has been conducted, but thereafter for one reason or the other, either the judge has resigned or he has retired, so probably the impeachment process cannot be concluded. But so far as the Chief Justice of India himself is concerned, there is no separate mechanism prescribed. Therefore, I think in this particular case, the decision taken that the complaint which has been received against the Chief Justice of India will be examined and investigated by the 3 judges of the Supreme Court itself. I think it's a well thought of decision which has been taken by the full court as reported in the media, because there was no other mechanism. If there is no mechanism, that doesn't mean that you cannot prescribe a mechanism. So I think the court in its wisdom, the full court took a decision that if there is no mechanism prescribed for investigation of a complaint against Chief Justice of India, let there be an examination by the 3 judges of the court itself. Other options were possible, but I think the court in its wisdom itself has thought that let it be examined by the 3 judges. I don't see anything wrong in that. Maybe some people may say because all the 3 judges are also part of the Supreme Court.
I was coming to that because there are several people who have said that there should be an independent inquiry. I mean, is that a justified claim?
Well, I think the other option could have been, as it has been prescribed already, and as I think the complaint which has been filed against the Chief Justice itself says that there should be an independent body involving the people of the bar, independent people. That could have been another option. But if out of the 2 options, one option has been taken, which is a possible option, I don't see anything wrong in that. Yes, one of the points which you are also making is that because he is a Chief Justice and the judges are working in the Supreme Court. But I think if you take that argument, then it will be impossible to conduct an inquiry against the Chief Justice. And one thing more which you have to recognize is that Chief Justice of India is only first among the equals in the judges. He is the administrative head. So far as judicial work is concerned, so far as this kind of investigation is concerned, the committee is independent. It doesn't take any direction from the Chief Justice. So to that extent, I think this is the best available mode which was available to the Supreme Court. And I mean, it's a good thing that the Chief Justice himself has agreed that let the complaint be investigated, and for that investigation, when the whole court sits and decides that let the 3 judges decide it, I think that was the best course available to the Supreme Court under the given circumstances.
Right. Satya Prakash, I'm going to go back to a point that Mr. Nigam was making about the media. Now, has the media been used as a tool really, to question the judiciary, to question the judgments made by the judiciary?
Before I answer this question, one particular point, what Malhotra Sahab has said. In a verdict in K. Ramaswamy case in 1991, the Supreme Court clarified the legal position on criminal cases against judges. Judges are holding constitutional position. There cannot be any criminal case. They have to be removed. There is a procedure prescribed for that in Judges Inquiry Act. So, and the constitutional, there are certain provisions. But if there is some case to be registered against a judge of a High Court or a High Court Chief Justice or a Supreme Court judge, you have to take consent of the Chief Justice of India. That's the prescribed procedure under K. Ramaswamy case verdict 1991. But if the case pertains to the CJI himself, then the government is required to consult the senior most judge or judges, and then the future course of action can be decided. That's the legal position. Coming back to the media, in this case there is a marked distinction, and that is what it's a changing. We are at a kind of transition phase of the media, where the traditional media, the print media, and you can add electronic media also, they act in a different manner. And the online media, the news portals, they have perhaps a different standard. Why I am suggesting this? Because this story, which was published by news portals, to my knowledge and understanding, some newspapers were also approached, but they refused to publish it because of various reasons, and they have their own standards of checks and balances and verifying facts and all. Or I'm not saying the news portals, they have acted irresponsibly or they have not followed the process, taking reaction from the Supreme Court registry and all. I'm not suggesting that, but I'm saying the traditional media and the new media, I mean the news portals, particularly online media, they have different yardsticks to apply to a news situation. So in this case, the news portals, they chose to publish it and publicize it, while the traditional media chose to exercise restraint. In the process, the traditional media has become follower of these, because they broke the story and the rest of the people they followed. So that's from the news point of view. But still I'll maintain that kind of restraint when it comes to judiciary. And when it comes to wild allegations against the head of the judiciary, there are ways and means to ascertain that. I'm not suggesting that what they did is outrightly right or wrong. They took their own editorial decision, and in their judgment it was fine and fair. But the traditional media still maintains restraint in such manners. So far as this case is concerned, generally, because in the past some cases happened, there were some allegations against former Supreme Court judges. In those cases, at least in one case, there was a restraint order issued by the Delhi High Court because the judge himself went to the High Court. In some cases, various High Courts or some other courts, they pass restraint orders and media is restrained. In this case, the Supreme Court itself left it to the media to decide whether they want to publish it and to what extent they will go and publish it.
Right.
I can tell you, because some of the newspapers and news portals, they publicized the entire details of the allegations. Some chose to limit it just the allegations of sexual harassment. They did not get into the details, graphic details of the allegations and how everything is there in the affidavit filed. But
so it was a personal call, really, an editorial call of each of the publications is what you're suggesting.
Two things. One is distinction between the traditional media and new media, and second is personal call taken by editors,
right,
or individual news organizations, how far they will go in publishing. So far as Supreme Court is concerned, Supreme Court has acted very liberally and in a very magnanimous manner. Right. Despite being a case relating to the Supreme Court, they left it to the media to decide how far they can go in publishing these wild allegations.
Sure. Deshratan Nikam, so that having been said, is there an attempt being made to denigrate the integrity of the institution itself?
As I pointed out earlier, CJI and the Supreme Court are hearing some very sensitive matters. And without commenting on the merits of the case, when I see portals like Print, Wire, who promote a particular ideology, and we have seen it's very well known, then there's some kind of a doubt appears in my mind. I mean, I'm not sure because investigation has yet not been completed. But I follow these two portals very carefully, and I see if seen a particular ideology being promoted, and therefore there comes a doubt that there's some kind of element of politicization is also involved, and therefore that ultimately it is for the investigation to prove that is an assault on the judiciary.
Right. Okay. Quick closing comments now from all my guests, starting first with you, Mr. Malhotra. Is the independence of the judiciary under threat as you see it today?
Well, frankly speaking, my answer to it will be no, in the sense that judiciary itself exercises restraint when it comes to exercising its power with regard to this type of allegations, and they move in a laid down manner. I think the time has come when we should also look at the situation, because impeachment, in case such allegations are there and ultimately they are proved, what other action other than the impeachment can be taken. One possible view can be that the Judicial Standards and Accountability Bill, which was introduced in the Parliament number of times but could not be passed, I think it is high time we should consider it, so that people also get a confidence, well, judicial officers are also accountable in case they are misconducting, and there is a procedure laid down for that. Today, why this whole problem is coming? Because there is no procedure laid down, and they lay down procedure on ad hoc basis. So far as when the judges conduct itself is coming, they are all ad hoc committees under the administrative guidelines, not regulated by law of the Parliament. Like take for example, we are talking of a complaint which has been made against the Chief Justice. There is a law to that effect. That law is binding on everybody. There are rules made to that effect even by the Supreme Court with regard to the employees, but those rules are not applicable to the judges. If they are not applicable to the judges, so there should be some rule in case this type of thing is coming. And more particularly, as my learned colleague panelist here has said, that when it comes to the media, maybe the print media has exercised certain restraint and probably the new media has not exercised that kind of restraint. I think if these kind of things are there, probably the media itself will be exercising that kind of restraint, and the kind of allegations which are coming, they will think twice before publicizing it without there being an authenticity on the allegations which are made against the judges. So I think high time that Judicial Accountability Standards Bill should be again reconsidered. In what form it should come, it should be debated. Law Commission can be there, other NGOs can be consulted, legal fraternity can be consulted, and I think that should be brought.
Right. Satya Prakash, so that having been said, you mentioned in your opening remark itself, third Chief Justice of India, getting into controversy in this particular manner. So how can the judiciary and the judges really insulate themselves from threats such as these?
Well, it's very difficult because there are various interests groups, and there are the nature of judiciary, the kind of work they do, and there are very high stake matters. So I'm not suggesting that a particular allegation has been leveled because of that or not, because it's a matter of investigation. But it's very difficult to insulate. What can be done is that there should be some procedure to deal with such situations, and this should be this case should be made out to be an example of how things are should be dealt with. If the allegations are false and there is actually an attempt to implicate the CJI in a false case, then those involved must be taken to task. But I am not suggesting that the allegations are true, but in case, I am not talking about this case, in case in future, supposing there is some allegations against a sitting judge or a CJI, there should be some mechanism to deal with that. After all, we are dealing with institutions. Individuals may come and go, but institution will remain there, and the credibility of the institution will get enhanced if there is a proper mechanism to deal with such situations. Right. Because in that case, people will not have anything to say, because everything is laid down. So immediately, law will set in motion, and things will be dealt with as per the procedure.
Absolutely right. So, Deshratan Nigam, concluding remark on the best way forward.
See, I tell you, I think Supreme Court is handling this issue in a very matured manner, the way they have gone about it. And at the same time, we have seen some restraint in media also. That's very good. But at the same time, if you look at it, why such issues are coming? There's a churning going on in the governance. There is a paradigm shift in the way the government was functioning before and now. That governance shift is probably attacking the corruption, black money, and so many issues are there. And therefore, the people who wanted the status quo are not very interested that this status quo may change or should change. And therefore, one has to be very careful. As I said, these issues should not be allowed to be politicized and should be viewed on the merits of the case and impartially. And I believe the Supreme Court is capable of handling such a kind of an issue.
All right. On that note, then, we'll call it a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. That's it from me. See you again next time.